We are now well into the 5G era, and the big question now facing the telecom industry is, what is the business case for 5G? Well, this is where all the different aspects of the industry come into play. It's about a lot more than enhanced mobile broadband. And at the end of the day, service providers need to make money from their 5G services. This is where BSS systems and solutions come into play. BSS has been around, of course, for a very long time, providing the billing and customer care solutions that operators need to back up their business plans. But now, in this era of 5G, there's a much more cloud-oriented approach to services and operations, and services and BSS systems and OSS systems need to evolve. So I'm talking today to Ari Banerjee. He is the VP of Strategy at Netcracker Technology, about how BSS is evolving for the 5G era. So Ari, how does BSS need to evolve for 5G and for 5G centric services?
Good question, Ray. I think we would all agree that the telecom business environment and the competitive landscape has changed drastically in the last few years. Telecom operators are not competing with telecom operators anymore. They are competing with a raft of innovative players, right? The over-the-top players, the cloud players, and so on. This disruption that we see in the telecom market will increase as we look into 5G and such technologies. And you're right, BSS plays an absolutely mission-critical role when we talk about how do operators monetize and make money from these 5G-centric services. And what becomes more and more important is that today's services that the operators are trying to roll out, as with 5G, are not just about telecom services. And it's a combination of telecom and non-telecom services where operators are working with other industry verticals, making sure that those services can be bundled together with telecom services and provided to the consumers as well as to enterprises. So if we look at the legacy BSS, I mean, Ray, you pointed out, BSS has been there for many, many years. The way it has grown, it's more about, it's monolithic from an architecture standpoint. It's cloud ready in many cases, but it's really not fully cloud native. Most of the product or the solution that the operators have rolled out in the past obviously were very, very telecom centric models. Time to market took a very long time, a very ARPU driven approach. So in net, it's really about a monolithic system. It's batch based. It's offline. It is not AI, ML, intelligence driven, and obviously a very waterfall-centric approach to BSS. Now, with 5G, and when we look at some of the disruptive and innovative services that the operators are planning to roll out, this legacy BSS approach does not work. So what does that mean, right? If we look at from an architecture standpoint, there needs to be a major shift, and that's where moving towards more of a cloud-centric approach or a cloud-native approach becomes very, very critical. You are also looking at a fully containerized BSS. There is obviously the product portfolio, which expands from just a telecom product portfolio to much more of a partner-driven approach. And we will get into partners and how that plays in this context, because it's a very, very important part of this. Time to market, right? It used to take months, sometimes years to roll out services. We are talking about days, weeks in today's day and age. A very ARPU-based campaign system is now moving into a very loyalty-centric model. Campaigns based on lifetime value, campaigns based on loyalty points. Working with multi-vertical industries to make sure that the loyalty points are not just about your voice video services, but across plethora of services. A great example of that is one of our customers, Rakuten, for example. In that case, the cross-industry loyalty spans across 70 industry verticals. And you can use loyalty and use it across all these 70 industry verticals. Transaction management and others, where we said which is offline, has become much more real time and contextual. Much more utilization of analytics, smart decision making, next best offer, next best action, um, offers and campaigns based on your lifetime value, based on how much you spend. All that becomes very important. And where we had service delivery, which used to be very much a waterfall kind of a context, has now moved beyond that. We are now in the era where we are talking about joint DevOps. We, as sitting next to our operator customers and jointly developing products, services, and some of those BSS aspects that used to happen in isolation. So major change, huge shift as we see the BSS and how it has evolved in the last, I would say, last few years.
Now, cloud and 5G very much go hand in hand, and we're constantly hearing announcements from operators and vendors about how they're operating much more in a cloud environment. Now, what are some of the key architectural and functional attributes that operators need to keep in mind when they're evaluating a cloud native BSS system?
A very good question, Ray. I think when people talk about cloud, it's talked very loosely. It's talked about cloud in the context of uh, we have it in managed services, so it's cloud. We are going to have that in a private cloud, so it's cloud. One thing becomes fundamentally clear that when we talk or when we are talking about a real cloud solution, it's really about a deployment agnostic solution. So whether it's a public cloud, whether it's a telco cloud, whether it's a hybrid cloud, the solution should be deployable on any of those. Um, Interestingly, the other interesting part of this is if you have your monolithic legacy BSS system and you have just made sure that it's available on any cloud, it is still monolithic. It defeats the purpose a little bit. So um, obviously, if an operator is looking for a full stack, they should be able to get that BSS in any telco cloud or public cloud. But also, if they're looking for best of breed, certain subsegments within BSS, let's say they're looking for an online charging system, they're looking for campaign management or any of those aspects, they should be able to do that. So it should not be just a monolithic legacy bolted on public cloud, but it's also about how do you decouple it so that best of breed applications can be chosen by operators depending on their business needs. The other aspect of this is, uh, you know, the proprietary aspect of the technology. So let me talk a little bit about some of the architectures, and this kind of goes in to Netcracker Cloud BSS solution that we have launched. We have been working in the market with. We have a bunch of customers on it, and there's some fundamental aspect to it, and this aligns very well. So let's talk a little bit about some of those aspects of it. Let's talk architecture, right? One of the things that needs to happen, which is fundamental, is to moving away from proprietary databases. So moving away from Oracle, for example, and adopt more open source technologies such as Cassandra or any of these post-GRE SQL, any of those alternate database technology becomes very critical. Microservice-based architecture, being able to and be able to support or deploy on top of any Kubernetes cloud, that becomes very important. Extensible data models to support telco and non-telco centric services also are very critical. And obviously support for open APIs and other industry initiatives such as TM Forum and others becomes very important because it's not a black box anymore. You need to keep it open. You need to be extendable. You need to work with your partner systems and so on and so forth. From a functional capability, it needs to not only support your consumer segments, but also enterprise segment and your B2B2X kind of a segment as well. So those are very important criteria that becomes a very crucial part of your operations and in your architecture. The other, if you look at end-to-end automation, enterprise product catalog role becomes very critical. So bringing together rapid offer and design, seamless integration with runtime catalogs on sales, provisioning, billing, and partner systems all of that becomes a very, very important criteria. Digital customer journey, right? When we say BSS, BSS is not just about revenue management. It's also about customer management and customer support. How do you support an omni-channel customer journey seamlessly? That is a very important part of your cloud BSS or your BSS solution, which is addressed or geared towards cloud, towards 5G and other next-gen type of architectures. Now, besides cloud native architecture, cloud native operations is very, very important. 5.9 availability. We talk about that at length when we talk about your legacy BSS systems. It's the same when we are talking about the next generation or cloud-centric BSS. The high availability for cloud BSS, the way we have architected our solution, is again achieved via distributed microservices architecture with no a single point of failure. It needs to be highly available. This whole capabilities around highly available and scalable is obviously provided by Kubernetes cluster, and obviously also from a architect in a way that geo redundancy is handled very, very seamlessly. These are important from a microservices standpoint. There are other aspects which become very important. Rolling updates, for example, for introduction of new services or microservices running based on hardware consumption. Blue-green deployment to keep several versions of microservices available. So depending on the functional needs, you can roll back or roll forward different microservices that makes up this BSS solution. So the same way, when you look at release to production, for example, quick releases to production to stay on the latest version, all of that becomes very key part of this cloud native operations. A joint development is also an important aspect. So allowing joint development processes, the customers can be very much part of the product development process, building their own microservices and integrate that with their own solutions by jointly working with our team and the customer team. That becomes a very essential part of this whole cloud operations or joint development approach. So there are many, many fundamental things that makes this a successful and a real cloud native solution. Because other than that, it's really you're putting a band-aid on an existing solution. It doesn't really create the innovation and the disruption that is needed from a cloud-centric BSS.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, there's a lot of evolution there, a lot of change, and that's just suitability for a cloud platform. Now, what about 5G? Are there any sort of specific BSS functions or requirements that are needed for 5G support to be critical for 5G services?
Being cloud native is one part of it, and we did talk about that. What is more important is to look at some of the key aspects around customer management, impact on product management. Obviously, there's an impact on revenue management and your partner management stuff. So, distributing charging architecture to support ultra low latency services becomes very important. That support for slice-based services, support for multi-access edge, all of these becomes important. On-demand scalability. Remember, ability to handle huge amount of data in a cost-efficient manner becomes important. Handling huge data volumes in a very cost-efficient manner is an important part of it. Ultra low latency and obviously multi-tenant based charging requirements becomes critical. The app store like experience from a product management standpoint is a very important aspect. So how do you support dynamic quotation? How do you handle the configuration capabilities? How do you bring together a variety of 5G network parameters and also utilize that and create services, also bundling in partner-centric services? All of that are important aspects of product management, which becomes very critical. Customer digital identity management, customer journey management, all of that becomes an essential part of your of a 5G solution. Cross industry loyalty point, so critical. So if you have a industry loyalty program, how does it traverse and cross across different industry becomes an important aspect of it. The last but not the least, impact on partner management. In the era of 5G, we are in an era of the platform economy, really. So innovation will not be restricted to the operators in-house. Innovation will come because of how operators work with other industry verticals. So it will be a shared responsibility. It will be a shared service portfolio. So that means quick onboarding of partners. How do you bring those together in this ecosystem? How do you create advanced self services? All of these things that go with this managing the partner, which typically in many cases used to be outside BSS, right? Partner management and revenue management used to be very separate in the past. It needs to come together. So I think those are the few elements I think which becomes very critical when we are looking at 5G monetization and helping operators be very successful in this era.
So you mentioned partner management there, and it's abundantly clear, just from what the operators are saying, that partner-based ecosystems are going to be absolutely essential for the CSPs to be able to develop new business cases and new revenue streams. So how can Netcracker help the operators in this regard?
I think managing the partner ecosystem effectively is a very fundamental aspect of success when we come to the world of 5G. So a dynamic partner ecosystem management, enabling that to be part of the product portfolio as well as part of the digital marketplace becomes crucial. This is where Netcracker has a digital marketplace solution, which is where we're bringing together 300 plus partners, for example, and make it very seamless so that the partner lifecycle management from onboarding to service management to license management to contract management, all of that is done very, very seamlessly. Utilizing external APIs, standard even APIs to bring together partners. They could be your value-added service partners. It could be your cloud provider partner. It is your SDN and FV partners, your IoT providers, other industry verticals being part of it. What becomes essential is how can operators provide this as part of a bundle strategy. So these cannot be an isolated marketplaces, so that a customer has to go to one call center or call them or to a self-service portal or whatever to order your typical voice video data services and has to be redirected and go to a different portal completely to have those services. These are all integrated. The reason for that is the power of the bundle. You can provide cross-product discount. You can provide better offers. You can provide trial for free of some of these services as part of the application. You can provide a contextual push saying, hey, you are an SMB. You brought all these voice, video, data application services. Are you looking for firewall? Are you looking for Office 365? Are you looking for this, that, and other services which are aligned to your business needs? And if you buy it from us, we can give you a cross-product discount, which you will not get if you directly go and try to buy the services from those individual portals. It obviously enhances the revenue flow, but what that means is there are certain aspects of partner management which needs to be seamless and needs to work an integral part of your overall BSS value chain. So let's look at some of those, right? There are three, if you break it up, the entire partner lifecycle management, there are really three aspects of it, which needs to be done very, very seamlessly. One is your operational onboard, which is your service design, your service lifecycle management, your license management. Different partners will have different licensing mechanisms. How do you make sure that as somebody in the middle, like us, providing a digital marketplace of all these different services, can handle this very, very seamlessly? So that license doesn't run out when you're creating a service chain. Licensing doesn't run out because too many people bought the services. So managing those licenses in the middle becomes an important aspect because some people are licensing based on CPU, some people based on number of users, some people based on number of sessions. So every different partner will have the different ways of handling this license management. And somebody needs to stay in the middle to make this happen very, very seamlessly. Technical onboarding is the next step. How do you integrate the solution, test it, onboarding that from a technical standpoint? And then comes the last part of it, which is a commercial bit. How do you publish the services? What are the contracts? What are the revenue settlement terms? What are the procurement management terms? How do you compose the offer? And things such as those. So if you look at a few things, you can break that up really into a few different things. One is your onboarding and lifecycle management, and some complexity which comes as part of as your broader ecosystem evolves, it becomes more and more complex. So support for different types of partnerships, support for different models of your partnership. Is a distribution model, is a co-selling model, what is that? And managing complex hierarchy as part of this becomes an important aspect. Partner performance. How is it performing under your umbrella? Do you need to tweak that based on what you're seeing? So all of these aspects of it, and obviously the financial bit of it, right? You get a dollar. How do you settle it? How many parties are involved in that complex settlement between different parties? How do you bring that as part of your invoice management and bill run as part of your final bill that goes to your customer? But also, how do you settle that with your partners?
Well, an awful lot to consider there, as you'd expect. But you've covered so much ground and brought up so many points there, Ari. And I've been saying for years that 5G. There's been so much focus on the new mobile network infrastructure, but at the same time, the operators and the whole industry needs to look at the broader set of technical capabilities needed to actually make the 5G dream become a reality. And BSS, of course, is an absolutely critical part of that. So thanks for taking us through some of the key considerations today, Ari. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Ray.